Well, welcome everybody, and thank you very much for joining us for this session. Today we're going to be hearing about two recently commissioned mental health services for children under 12 years of age that you will be able to access across the Hunter New England and the Central Coast region. I'm Sandy Vincent from the PHN Education team, and I'm joined by Dan Reynolds, who is the PHN Commissioning Coordinator for Mental Health and Suicide Prevention, and our two presenters today, who are Kathleen Doolan, who is the Education and Developmental Psychologist for Beam Health, and Phoebe Connors, who is the Operations Manager within Mental Health Services at Uniting. Thank you very much for being with us today. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we live and work on and pay my respects to their enduring culture and contributions to the life of this vast region. A few things to let you know. This session is being recorded and the recording will be available on our PHN website under the Education Library tab in a couple of days. If you have questions during the presentation, please use the questions box in your panel and we will direct and facilitate those questions to our presenters at the end of the session. And also an evaluation will come to you directly after the session. We would be very grateful if you would complete that, as your feedback is very important to us. With that, I would like to hand over to Kathleen, who is going to start the session with us. Let me just, there we go.
Apologies, I showed the wrong thing.
That's okay.
Can you resend that, please? I've lost the.
Hi.
Oh wait, is this? Did that work?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No problem at all, Kathleen. That looks great.
Okay, so I'm Kathleen. I'm from Beam Health, and I'll just be talking to you about Little Sparks, which is the program, which is what we've called the program. So Beam Health is a child and family focused multidisciplinary service that has been supporting Lake Macquarie, Newcastle, and this for about 6 years, and we've been on the Central Coast for about nearly 12 months now. So we are a multidisciplinary team with psychologists, speech pathologists, occupational therapy, and behaviour support. And our main focus is supporting children and adolescents up to the age of 25, but you will see we also do some adult work as well. So we deliver services across the range of Medicare and full fee, NDIS, early years, Head to Health, which is a program under the PHN as well, and then Little Sparks, which we'll be talking to you about today. We have 4 clinic locations. So we have Warners Bay, Cessnock and Tuggerah, and just recently opened a clinic in Brisbane, in Toowong in Brisbane as well. And the Little Sparks program is offered on the north of the Central Coast through Beam, the Greater Newcastle region, the Lower Hunter and Upper Hunter. At the moment, we're just doing telehealth in the Upper Hunter because we're still looking for a site to be offering face-to-face services out there. The services we typically offer, so a direct therapy, so a range of modalities, but most often CBT, acceptance and commitment therapy, EMDR, DBT, schema, and a lot of trauma informed supports. We do assessment across all disciplines, behaviour support, consultation with stakeholders, and offer supervision. We of course also work closely with stakeholders, so GPs, schools, and a number of external agencies. We also run a number of groups, so the ones we have coming up in the next 6 months or so are tuning into key kids, tuning into teens, 1, 2, 3 magic emotion coaching, and then Cool Kids anxiety programs, so across all ages from so the Cool Little Kids up to the study program for year 11 and 12 students. We also do Speech Superstars, Kickstart for kindy and preschool communicators, so they're speech and OT groups as well. So the Little Sparks program is for children that meet criteria are eligible for a maximum of 12 sessions in a calendar year with a trained and skilled psychologist or mental health practitioner. And if possible and appropriate, group sessions can also be facilitated and do not count towards the individual therapy sessions in that calendar year. So that's just our flyer. And again, I'll go through what our target groups are. So to be under 12 years of age and presenting with mental, emotional or behavioural concerns, under financial hardship or less able to pay fees to access private mental health services and unable to access the Medicare subsidised health services. Be children of parents with severe mental illness, be of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander background or culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, have self-harmed or attempted suicide or have suicidal ideation and be appropriately managed within our settings, live in rural or remote areas, or at risk of discontinuing services. And to be eligible, they must live on the Central Coast in Greater Newcastle, the Lower Hunter or Upper Hunter areas, and not currently be accessing psychological support through other means, so through out-of-home care funding or NDIS supports. So our service model is up to 12 sessions, similar to a mental health care plan, and again in the target areas. So these 12 sessions can have a high level of parent, carer and community involvement, and we support flexible delivery methods. So that can be in clinic, at home, at school, in the community if that's most appropriate. And that risk is assessed that it's suitable to be completed in those areas. There's additional time allowed within this program to carry out important non-face-to-face work to support children and families, such as liaison with other professionals, writing of letters and reports, so developing therapy resources and research and preparation, and other ad hoc non-face-to-face support as needed, which if they were under the mental health care plan would be additional fee for some of these services. There's also access to regular and rolling varied group programs and workshops for both children and their parents, so as described before. So what we're planning in the next 12 months is parent support, social skills, play skills, self-care, emotion regulation, as well as the emotion coaching and targeted anxiety groups. Access to these groups will be evaluated and considered within each individual session. And we were hoping to provide them both in person and online to get as much reach as we can. Services will be delivered and made available to all clients across all service areas. And we aim to be able to tailor them to individual needs. So if someone does better over telehealth, then we'll be able to offer that, but also have a presence in each area to offer face-to-face services, either in clinic or in home or school settings. We'll be also growing our community connections in those areas so that ongoing support can be offered outside of these 12 sessions once support has wrapped up. So we currently have over 25 eligible practitioners with capacity to start supporting children under this program. So that includes myself as an educational developmental psychologist. We have 2 clinical psychologists, a mental health OT, a number of registered psychologists, and 2 counsellors that we've just brought on board. And where the Beam Health team is very well versed in supporting children in a variety of modes, so both telehealth in clinic and also working with schools to offer support in school settings where it's appropriate, and liaising with schools, GPs and other stakeholders and other professionals to get the best support for those young people. Okay. So if you'd like to refer, we can receive referrals directly from the general practitioners, either to our email address, which is littlesparks@beamservices.com, or via phone or fax. We are also hoping to be up on Health Pathways today. If not, it'll be very soon, so that our information will be available there as well. So we have an intake team that will talk to the parent and caregiver and to discuss the most appropriate supports and get sessions booked in. We can also take provisional referrals from school counsellors, paediatricians and family nurses, and families and children can access 2 sessions prior to speaking to the GP to get the official referral into the Little Sparks program. Okay, so I'll just talk you through a case study so you can see how this might work in practice. So I'm going to give an example of Emma, who's a fictitious client. So Emma's 8 years old and referred by her school psychologist, who made a phone call to our intake team. The school psychologist notes that there's been a notable change in Emma's mood and behaviour since returning to school from the holidays. Emma has made comments about not wanting to be here anymore and that she doesn't see the point in trying. The psychologist confirms that Emma's family consent and are expecting a phone call from the Little Sparks program, and that she has let Emma's family know that she will need a GP referral to have access to the full program. Our intake team will phone Emma's family to complete an intake assessment, and then Emma's family identified there's been a recent suicide in Emma's extended family and that Emma's having a particularly difficult time understanding and processing her grief. Emma lives in a small town and used to see that family member often, and since the death has been asking a lot of questions about what happens when someone dies. The intake team work with Emma's family to decide that in-clinic sessions will be best, as it would be difficult for Emma to have privacy in the busy home for telehealth sessions. While on the phone, intake assign a registered psychologist with experience working with grief and suicidality, and Emma's family are able to ask questions about the clinician and to also access a photo of the clinician via the Beam website to show Emma before her first session. The initial session is confirmed for the following day, and general information about mental health and support hotlines are provided to Emma's family via email. The intake team would then speak with the assigned clinician to give an overview of the intake notes before the initial session. Within the initial session, the clinician would review the purpose of the Little Sparks program, confidentiality and data storage, and complete a case formulation and risk assessment. It is confirmed in-clinic sessions are best for Emma, and weekly sessions are booked in from there on, and could move to fortnightly once Emma is feeling more able to implement her coping skills. Additionally, it's agreed that the clinician and Emma's parents will have weekly phone calls in between sessions, and a stakeholder meeting is planned for the following week. The Beam clinician would then send a letter to Emma's GP and let them know she's attended one session and is looking into a Little Sparks referral for ongoing support. At the stakeholder meeting, Emma's support team meet. This would include her parents, her grandmother, who cares for her most days after school, the school teacher, principal and GP. Emma had also recently had a hospital presentation at CAMS, so her CAMS clinician is present. The goal of the stakeholder meeting would be to ensure Emma's supports are up to date on her current presentation, and that there's consistency and clarity in roles so everyone can work together to support Emma. It's determined that the school will email any relevant updates to support the team, that CAMS will continue to work on acute risk, while the Little Sparks clinician will work with Emma to process her grief and increase her distress tolerance and coping skills. CAMS and Little Sparks clinicians agree to send a brief session reviews to each other and the GP after each session. A follow-up stakeholder meeting is planned for 6 weeks later. At each session and phone call, there'll be a brief treatment review, both with formal assessment scales, but also client outcome scales for Emma. After 6 weeks, Emma and her family report that her mood is still low, but the feelings of not wanting to be here are no longer constant. Emma and her family report they're happy to move to fortnightly sessions and develop a support plan to help Emma once Little Spark services have completed. During a phone call with her parents, it has been identified that Emma's father is also having difficulty with grief, and he's encouraged to attend a grief group at a local neighbourhood centre. After the 6th session, a review letter is also sent to Emma's GP. The support plan is developed in consultation with Emma, her family and the school. Once completed, Emma is comfortable with this being shared with her support team, so everyone is aware of the support plan needs. A second stakeholder meeting occurs to review Emma's progress and support plan. CAMS report that they are ready to discharge Emma and have been working with her to prepare for this. Both family and school report Emma's feeling happier, but still has days where her mood is low. She does not seem to enjoy herself like she used to. Goals are set for the remainder of the Little Spark service and a plan for step down in treatment in CAMS and Little Sparks. And again, both clinicians agreed to send GP closure reports once the service is complete. The school report that Emma will have access to the school psychologist, and her family give permission for therapy reports to be shared with the school. Emma and her parents are encouraged to attend the upcoming Tuning Into Kids program to support Emma's understanding of emotions and emotion coaching. Emma completes her Little Spark service and is discharged. Summary reports are sent to both the school and the GP. Emma's family is provided with a discharge pack with information on specific supports for Emma and her family in the future, and agree to do a check-in within a month, but let the family know to call if they need supports in between. At the review check-in, the clinician phones Emma's family a month after discharge, and the family report that overall she's doing really well, but still has her low days. The clinician asks if Emma has seen the school psychologist, but this has not yet occurred. So with Emma's family's permission, the clinician contacts the school to ask for the psychologist to check in. A brief letter is also sent to update Emma's GP. So that's how we propose it will look. We're still early on in the current clients that have come through. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Kathleen. All right, I'm going to now ask Phoebe to start her presentation. So I'm just going to do that.
No worries.
Beautiful, that looks great.
Okay, and can you see that okay?
Perfect. Thank you, Phoebe, that looks great.
Thanks, Sandy. Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to introduce you to Uniting's Wellbeing for Kids program. So first, I just wanted to share with you a little bit about Uniting. Uniting is a part of the Uniting Church, Synod New South Wales ACT, and responsible for social justice, community services and chaplaincy work of the Uniting Church. We provide care and support for people through all ages and stages of life, with a focus on people experiencing disadvantage and vulnerability. We have around 10,000 employees and volunteers supporting over 100,000 people across our services. Uniting is well known for operating early learning centres, aged care facilities and community services, but we also provide a wide range of specialist mental health services. With over 40 years experience in the mental health sector, we sit within Uniting's Communities Directorate. At Uniting, we have experience in supporting people throughout their entire lifespan. Our Communities Directorate delivers an extensive portfolio of services encompassing early learning, permanency support such as foster care, family restoration, parenting skill programs, youth housing support, employment services, and counselling and mediation. Our services reach more than 35,000 clients, including Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, cold refugees, migrant communities, and those in regional and rural communities. Our mental health services are recovery focused, meaning that we walk beside the individual in their recovery journey. We work across the mental health spectrum of interventions, offering early intervention, treatment, psychosocial rehabilitation, and continuing care. We also support the families and carers of a loved one with a mental illness. So our services include psychosocial services, where we support consumers experiencing severe and persistent mental health concerns to achieve their goals through a recovery-based trauma-informed framework in collaboration with clinical services. So for example, we're one of the HASI providers in the Hunter New England region, and we're one of the CLS providers on the Central Coast. Our primary mental health services provide psychological, social and biological supports and treatments for children, young people and adults in a primary care setting. So examples include our Headspace services, Like Mind and the Wellbeing for Kids program. And then we have our secondary mental health services, which also provide psychological, social and biological supports in a clinical setting, but these services are psychiatry led and delivered in a community setting through our Headspace Early Psychosis program. This is just a brief overview of some of the programs that we have across New South Wales in our mental health services. Onto the Wellbeing for Kids program. So the aim of the Wellbeing for Kids program is to provide greater access to specialist mental health services for children and families living with mental illness in the Hunter New England Central Coast region. Wellbeing for Kids has been established to address the significant gaps and challenges in the service sector. Services are targeted to prioritise population groups that have difficulty in accessing mental health treatment in the primary care sector, which include people who are under financial hardship and less able to pay fees to access private mental health services and are unable to access Medicare subsidised mental health services. Children under 12 years of age with mental, emotional or behavioural disorders, children who have parents with a severe mental illness, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, people of cold backgrounds, and individuals who have self-harm, attempted suicide or who have suicide ideation and are able to be appropriately managed in a primary healthcare setting, as well as children living in rural and remote areas. Our specialist mental health team can provide assessments and counselling for emotional, social and behavioural challenges. The team comprises of mental health professionals with qualifications in psychology, social work and nursing. Our delivery mode is flexible and individualised to the child's requirements with online and face-to-face sessions available. Assessments are needs-based and not diagnosis-driven. So we identify and prioritise children who are at risk. We identify via a biopsychosocial assessment with the child and the family, risk assessment and with supplementary information from referrers and other parties such as teachers. We prioritise through a triage system, safety planning with the family and working with partners to provide rapid intervention where required. Our services include evidence-based therapy to help the child manage their mental health challenges, utilising psychological and holistic strategies. This can include play therapy and family work. We also will offer parenting support and group programs, as well as practical support such as goal setting, mentoring and referrals to other services. Wellbeing for Kids is a free service, offering a maximum of 12 50-minute sessions in a calendar year. And the eligibility: children must be referred by a health professional such as a paediatrician, GP, child and family health nurse or a school counsellor. Children must live within the Hunter New England Central Coast region and they must not be currently accessing psychological services by other means, including eligibility for the NDIS or out-of-home care services. The following case studies will demonstrate the intake process, service provision and communication pathways of the Wellbeing for Kids programs. So they're only brief. The first one's just on a social issue. So a 9-year-old child has developed an obsession with online gaming. He lives with his father and stepmother and does not come out of his room and has a concerning school absentee record. His father has undergone numerous medical procedures, leaving him bedridden and depressed and lacking positive connections with his son. His stepmother spoke with their GP and a referral was sent to the Wellbeing for Kids intake line. The clinician advised the GP via letter of the initial progress after assessments and again midway through treatment. The clinician supports the family to connect to local gaming supports and works with their son to support underlying anxiety issues and reduction and replacement behaviours for gaming. The GP is then informed by a letter of completion of the program and suggestions of post-treatment support. The next case study we've got is just around behavioural issues. So an 11-year-old Indigenous child living with his aunt and uncle was referred to his GP for support to manage his anger. His extended family are not receiving other supports and have struggled to find a service that is willing to support their nephew, as he does not meet NDIS eligibility and he is not attending school counselling services due to numerous suspensions. His GP completes the referral and emails the Wellbeing for Kids intake line. GP is advised that the client has been accepted via an intake email and a first progress letter is sent to the GP after the initial assessment to advise of therapeutic planning. A review letter is sent to the GP midway through the treatment to advise of progress of therapy and any collaboration of service provision. A discharge letter is sent to the GP advising of treatment completed and suggested referrals post-treatment. The young man has learned anger management strategies and developed steps to attend school and link in with the school counsellor. His auntie has completed the Bringing Up Great Kids program to understand attachment issues related to her nephew's behaviour. The Wellbeing for Kids team will work with all the local providers, like services such as schools and community providers within the community to promote the program, build referral pathways, build and maintain partnerships and create ongoing awareness of the program, whether that's through the community managed organisations, local health districts, GPs, schools, etc. The areas that we will be supporting with the Wellbeing for Kids program include the Gosford local government area of the Central Coast. Will be co-located with our existing counselling and mediation services in Watt Street, Gosford. We'll also be on the Mid Coast. We'll be co-located at the new First Steps Count Community Centre in Taree. In Tamworth, we'll be at the South Tamworth Primary School, and we're still sourcing location for Moray and Armidale. We've also established a specialist advisory committee. The committee will provide ongoing advice and advocacy over the life of the Wellbeing for Kids program, identifying opportunities to strengthen clinical practice and governance, ensuring safe and quality mental health care that is responsive to changing or developing needs. This committee will also foster partnership opportunities, working relationships and specialist advice on directions in children and their families' mental health care. The committee has membership available for 2 GPs. If you're interested in joining the Specialist Advisory Committee, please contact the Wellbeing for Kids team. And I'd just like to thank everyone for your time today and the Hunter New England Central Coast Primary Health Network for the opportunity to promote Uniting's Wellbeing for Kids program. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Phoebe. Thank you for that. Thank you, Kathleen, as well. Can you come on board with us again with your video? Because we actually have some questions which I would like to ask. First of all, thank you, Sujata, is asking, does Little Sparks need a mental health care plan or just a GP referral?
Do you want me to take this one? Yeah, so I guess with the funding, it doesn't essentially need a mental health care plan. It can be a GP referral, but when it comes down to the providers, I think the more information, the better, and the mental health treatment plan would be a much more suitable way to refer with to each provider. Hope that makes sense.
Thank you. Thanks very much for that. Rachel is asking and saying, both Little Sparks and Wellbeing for Kids programs seem very good. If I have a child who's suffering with low mood, how do I decide which program to refer them to out of both of these?
I can take that one too. So both programs are very similar. It's just the difference in the regions. So essentially, we have Beam in the areas they mentioned, so the Newcastle, Upper Hunter, and part of the Central Coast. And then same with Phoebe at Uniting with the New England Northwest region, the Mid Coast region, and the Gosford region. So, and really on the Central Coast, if you're landing in between, it's really what's more convenient for you. Is the Tuggerah office, if you want face-to-face sessions, going to be more convenient, or is the Gosford office going to be a bit more convenient?
Thank you, Dan. Another question from Rachel. If a child's family isn't particularly financially disadvantaged, can I still refer to these services?
With Beam, yes, because they have full fee paying services available. Phoebe, I'll let you take that one.
I think we'd have to look at each case on an individual case-by-case basis has kind of been the consensus that we've set between the two providers as well. Yeah, so we'd have to look at it and come back.
Thank you. And I guess we'll just one more question from Rachel, which I'll ask before we end the session. Rachel is saying, I work in the Port Stephens area. Are these services available in this region?
Yes, they are definitely available in the region. You would be best to contact Kathleen at Beam if you have any further questions. We'll also send out some brochures as well for the services in a follow-up email for you, so you can have a look at them to see what's more suitable.
That's excellent. Thank you very much. That was all the questions. Thank you very much, Phoebe, Kathleen, and Dan, for joining us for this session. It was excellent. Again, just to remind you about the evaluation that will come out after this, if you could complete that, and that the recording will be available to you on our website, and you'll see a link for that in the email that comes out to you. Thank you, everybody. Have a really great rest of your day, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks.